God our God. Shout with gladness to the God of Jacob. Strike a melody with the sound of trumpet, sweet trumpets on a high lyre. Sound the shofar on the new moon, on the full moon for our festival days. It is the law of the people of Israel. The God of Jacob sits in judgment. He proclaimed it when he rose against the land of Egypt. Then I heard a voice I never knew. I removed the burden from their shoulder. Their hands were freed from the load. When you called out in distress, I rescued you. Unseen, I answered you in thunder. I tested your faith in the oasis in the wilderness. Hear this warning, my people, Israel, if you would only listen. You shall have no strange God among you. You shall not worship an alien God. You can share your art through your the God who brought you out of Egypt. With your open up mouth and you will fill it. But my people did not listen. Israel will have none of me. So I gave them over to their stubbornness. I let them follow their own devices. If only my people would listen to me. If all people Israel would walk in my ways. I would include out their joys with shouts of gladness. Adonai malach geud lavesh Adonai osit azar. Aftikon tevel baltimod, nachon kisecha me'az, me'olam ata. Nas'u neharot Adonai, nas'u neharot kolam, yisu neharot dochyam, mikolot mayim rabim, adirim mishpereyam. Adir b'marom Adonai, edotecha nemnu, me'od levetcha nava kodesh, Adonai leorech yamim. Mizmor shir leyom HaShabbat, tov lehodot l'Adonai, ulzamer leshimcha elyon. Lehagid baboker chastecha, ve'emunatcha balelot. Ale asor v'ale navel, ale higayon bechinor. כי שמחתני אדוני בפועלך, במעשה ידיך ארנן. מה גדלו מעשיך אדוני, מאוד עמקו מחשבותיך. איש פער לא ידע, וכסיל לא יבין את זאת. לפרוח רשעים כמו עשב, ויציצו כל פלי אבן. הישמדם עדי עד ואתה מרום לעולם אדוני. כי הנה אויביך אדוני, כי הנה אויביך יאבדו. והתפרדו כל פלי אבן, ותרם כרם גני, ולא תיבא שמן רענן. ותבטני בשורי, וקמים עלי מרעים. תשמענה אוזנו צדיק, כי התמר יפרח, כארז בלבנון יזכה. שתולים בבית אדוני, בחצרות אלוהינו יפריחו. עוד ינבון בשיבה, דשנים ורעננים יהיו. להגיד כי אשר אדוני צורי, ולא עוולת בו. מזמור שיר חנוכת הבית לדוד, ארממך אדוני כי דיליתני, ולא שימחת אויבי לי, אדוני אלוהי שיבתי אליך ותרפאני. אדוני העלית מן שאול נפשי, הרנינו מידי בור. זמרו לאדוני חסידיו, והודו לזכר קודשו. כי רגע באפו חיים כרצונו, וערב ילין בכי ולבוקר ירנה. ואני אמרתי בשלבי ולמות לעולם. אדוני ברצונך העמדת להרעיף, הסתרת פניך הייתי נפעל. אליך אדוני אקרא ואל אדוני אתחנן. מה בצע בדמי עד שחדי אוהביך פארך עמיתך. שמע אדוני וחנני, אדוני היה עוזר לי. הפכת מספדי למחולי, פיתחת שקי ותעזרני שמחה. למען יזמרך כבוד ולא ידום, אדוני אלוהי לעולם עודך.
If you have a cell phone, could I please remind you to turn it off before we begin our service? The family will be having the meal of consolation here at Temple Bethel immediately following the burial, which is at the Bethel Cemetery. And then sometime when they're back, Reverend Dominia will be leading a Shiva minyan here at the synagogue. I'm guessing around the time about 4:30-ish, but he'll be sure to have it while the family is there. And then the family will be sitting Shiva with a service on Sunday at 5 o'clock and Monday and Tuesday at 7 o'clock p.m., and that'll be at Carol's home in Enfield. So again, this evening, or late this afternoon, it'll be here at Bethel, I'm saying 4:30-ish. But then the family will be at Carol's home on Sunday at 5 and Monday and Tuesday at 7 o'clock p.m. The measure of your blessing is the measure of your loss. My colleague, Rabbi David Wolpe, wrote, "We focus on the end of life, but each life is filled with days of accomplishment, days of beauty, days of wonder, and days of love. When someone we love dies, remember the blessing. If we could go back, we would choose to love all over again, even knowing it cannot last forever." I really appreciate Rabbi Wolpe's wisdom, because what he's saying is, in a moment like this, when the pain feels so heavy, we remind ourselves that if we had the choice, we would do it all over again. When I think about Len's life, I'm reminded of a poem by Miriam Varon. The name of the poem is called The Ride. We creatures of this earth are spun at random on our ever-turning carousel. At random, our turn is over and we are flung into the void. We do not know how many turns we'll take before the music stops. We do not choose our neighbors nor our rides. We buy a ticket and we wave and smile in passing. So if you knew Len Cohen, you would know that I chose this poem because the poet talked about a smile. And to have ever laid eyes on Len Cohen is to see this big, beautiful smile. Whether in the hospital, in rehab, in the midst of a hard conversation, celebrating his 50th anniversary, he had a beautiful smile, and he took it with him everywhere he went. And for me, that smile is symbolic of Len's disposition. I don't think I ever heard him complain. I don't think I ever heard him upset. He just, "What are you going to do, Rabbi?" And on he went. And to me, there is something so beautiful about the way Len carried himself. There's a beautiful poem by the late Rabbi Harold Schulweis. He wrote, "I would comfort you, dear friend, wipe away your tears and turn your sorrow into joy. I would console you with words of ancient wisdom of the need for acceptance of the inevitable, the inexorable course of life. I would speak to you of the immortality of influence, the afterlife of memory, the echo of goodness in the cavern of our lives. Yet the sages caution not in haste to console the bereaved, not too soon to begin the healing. I would raise the heavy weight from your heart, wave a wand and transform your grief. But the heart has its own wisdom and sets its own time and will not be rushed. Now is the time for silence, the dumb silence that awaits the coming of a new mood and a brighter spirit. With you, friend, I will be silent. Tomorrow we will speak. What I appreciate about Rabbi Schulweis's poem is that he understands that when a wound is so raw, and when the loss is so in the moment, it's not the time for consoling. It's really the time for remembering and for honoring. I only take issue with Rabbi Schulweis because he wrote, "Now is the time for silence." I'm a rabbi, it's not the time for silence. It's the time for talking. It's the time for remembering and honoring Len and for learning from him about what a good life looks like. And now is the time for hearing the beautiful words of Psalm 23, which offer us comfort and remind us of the most important lesson. When Len walked through the valley of the shadow of death, he was not alone. He had Carol by his side every step of the way.
Adonai roi lo achsar binot dashayar bitseni al mei menuchot yenaleni nafshi yeshovev yancheni v'magle tzedek yancheni v'magle tzedek leman shemo gam ki elech beged salmavet lo irara ki ata yadi shivtecha umishantacha hema yanachamuni ta'aroch lefanai shulchan neged sorai deshanta vashemen roshi kosi revaya ach tov v'chasad yedafuni kol yemei chayai v'shavti bevet Adonai leorach yamin. Adonai roi lo achsar Adonai roi lo achsar.
I share with you a nice translation of Psalm 23 written by Norman Fisher. Dear God, you are my shepherd, and I am content. You lead me to rest in the sweet grasses, to lie down by the quiet waters, and I am refreshed. You lead me down the right path, the path that unwinds in the pattern of your name. And even if I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I am not afraid, for you are with me, comforting me with your rod and your staff, showing me each step. You prepare a table for me in the midst of my adversity. You moisten my head with oil. Surely my cup is overflowing, and goodness and kindness will follow me all the days of my life. And in the long days beyond, I will always live within your house. So our tradition invokes Psalm 23 at a moment like this because it's really comforting. It's comforting to imagine, and I remind all of you, as I said, as Len walked through the valley of the shadow of death, Carol was with him. But the psalmist is saying, so is God. And I imagine and believe that all of you friends who were with Len and Carol these last many years as Len really struggled, you were on that journey. And the psalm ends by saying, I will always live within your house. Goodness and kindness will follow me all the days of my life. The psalmist isn't afraid of death. The psalmist doesn't see death as the enemy. The psalmist understands each of us will one day die. And he is grateful to God for being a partner and for creating a place for him in this world. And our sages understood that that could be a source of comfort. And so as our service unfolds and we learn more about Lenny's life, I hope that the words of the psalmist will be a container to hold all of this and to think about this journey. Before I speak, we will have 3 people who will honor Len through their words. First, we'll hear from his son, Rob, and then a family friend, Matthew Potter, and then Carol has some words that she wants to share. So, Rob, I'll invite you first.
Thank you for coming. I met Len when I was 6 years old. He soon became Dad Len, when I wore an oversized clown-like bow tie to his wedding to my mom in the small chapel down the hall from here. Daddy Len's presence in my life was filled with love, humor, and support. He was always there to play ball, no matter how bad I was, or even to put on an Indian headdress when we went out camping through something called Indian Guides. Throughout the chaos of my childhood, Daddy Len was a stabilizing force of good and kindness. We all know Len and how sweet and kind he was, always smiling, as you said, and calm, and amenable to whatever was on tap for the day. As I look back, pictures pop into my head of snapshots of our life together. Him, next to that ugly green car of his mustache, and all in the early 1970s, posing shirtless with my first cousins like they're bodybuilders, wearing a hat with fake hair and an orange rim to highlight that he is in on the joke that he has no hair. A picture with my girls, Goofy, my mom, and Mickey Mouse at Disney World. Just a few of the ones I think about, but mostly there were so many with him standing with my mom, always with my mom. I'm obviously going to miss him, but more than that, he was part of a team, he and my mom against the world. They were inseparable, and completed each other. Mom's passionate drive and his gentle steadiness were the heart of their relationship. They worked well together, and I will probably miss that the most. He fought hard these last couple of years to live up to his past, his part of the bargain to be there for my mom. Even just a month ago, he declared that he wanted to live as long as his dad, who passed away at 95. But this did not come to pass. I will really miss him and be sad for a long time, but I know this will pass, and I look forward to the time we're opening a bag of plain M&Ms, which were his favorite, bring happiness and memories instead of sadness and loss.
For those who don't know me, my name's Matthew Potter. I grew up right down the street from Lenny and Carol on Meriwether Drive in Long Meadow, and Andy and I are childhood friends. Life back in the 70s and 80s was much simpler than it is now. I'm now 62 and often find myself thinking about how life used to be back in those times growing up in a neighborhood and community composed of wonderful people. Like most of you, we all come across people in our lives who stand out for one reason or another, and for me, Lenny and Carol are right at the top of the list. When Carol asked me to say a few words about Lenny and what he meant to me, I was honored. There are so many wonderful adjectives to describe Lenny and his happy-go-lucky personality. I learned many things about Lenny that I did not know when I read his obituary. But you know that in addition to all those wonderful things Lenny accomplished in his life, he was also an outstanding ping pong player. Yes, this is true. And this has always been a unique connection that Lenny and I have always had. The basement ping pong table at 9 Carrollville Drive in Long Meadow was, for me, essentially the equivalent to center court at the US Open. Matches sometimes lasted more than 20 minutes, and more often than not, I found myself on the losing side. Lenny had this unique way of putting backspin on the ball that made it nearly impossible to return. He usually won, not by overpowering me, but rather selectively placing the ball on my side of the table with enough spin that I had essentially no chance of returning it. Even though I lost most of the time, he indeed made me a better ping pong player. And to this day, whenever I play, I remember the friendly competition that we shared. You see, looking back, it really was not about me losing and Lenny winning, or vice versa, but rather how Lenny handled himself. Win or lose, he always demonstrated the true meaning of sportsmanship at all levels. Lenny always played a gentlemanly game in his own unique and quiet manner, never boasting about a shot that he made or showboating in victory. That to me was the essence of Lenny's personality, pure compassion for others and always demonstrating the ultimate in sportsmanship. I must say, however, that no matter what the outcome was, there was always one prize that we shared together, and that was having a slice of one of Carol's famous apple pies that always seemed to be on hand, ready to enjoy. Lenny was just an all-around great guy. He was one of the kindest, loving people I've ever known, and I will miss him dearly. Lenny, thank you for being an integral part of my life since I was a very young boy. It was truly an honor and pleasure sharing life's ups and downs. Thank you, and Carol, for being there during tragic times in my own life when my dad passed in '78. I will never forget all the love and support you both shared with me and my family during those difficult times. By no means is this goodbye, Lenny, but as I routinely say, until we meet again, my friend. My advice for you now, Lenny, is that you practice every day up there in heaven, because sometime in the distant future, we will meet again. No need to worry about recognizing me, Lenny, because I'll be the one carrying the red ping pong paddle, looking for the ultimate heavenly rematch. Better be ready to play. Much love, Matthew.
Thank you for coming. How can this little girl, as Len always called me, begin to describe the most amazing man in the world I married some 52 years, 4 months, and 2 days ago? Just to use a number of adjectives that would fit the love of my life to a T, would be sweet, kind, caring, loving, compassionate, genuine, a gem, and giving of himself to me always, are just a few of them which I hope from this day forward will get me through the darkest days that are yet to follow. Be it his friend Harold of 72 years, Al Zippin, who tearfully called me last night, the Gerasi family, so many doctors, nurses, PT, OT, professionals, medical personnel, while being hospitalized for the past 35 years. Len's relatives and mine, including friends from east to west and north to south, no one ever has met such a remarkable human being without a flaw as Leonard Hyatt Cohen. My truly precious gem, I couldn't stop thinking of in different ways I possibly could do the most meaningful and spectacular happenings to make my dear husband smile even more. To celebrate our 25th, I knew how important it was for him to go to Israel, as he had been there before. Lenny never had been on a cruise before, so I made sure we traveled to Bermuda. Our vacation in Hawaii was a dream come true for more reasons than just its beauty, for I found a way monetarily to make it happen. Sadly, we returned 2 days before 9/11. I cannot forget the school vacation from Center, my wanting us to go to Spain, as we spoke Spanish un poquito, a little bit. Due to our being Youth for Understanding parents and having Sandra join our family when Andy was a senior in high school. They both graduated at the same time. As we always said, Sandra was the daughter we never had. What a sweetheart. To this day, she continues to be in our lives. She traveled from Toronto Sunday just in time to say her goodbyes. My honey loved to travel, so a year ago this past July, I read about the wish of a lifetime through AARP, which is for anyone 65 and older. I said to myself, why don't I enter to see if I could make such a well-deserving wish come true for my incredible husband? Lenny's wish was to travel, but being on dialysis for 8 years, congestive heart failure, leukemia, COPD, lung disease, being on a walker due to his many difficult falls, how could I ever make this dream come true? So I wrote this lengthy paper. I received a call in November asking me many more questions. His wish came true this past January. This wonderful occurrence took place in Naples, Florida, this past March. Lenny had wanted to go back to Hawaii, but I felt that the trip would be too long. Wow. AARP made 2,500 wishes come true across our country. They paid for everything. We were treated like a king and queen. During our time away, though, I did have to arrange dialysis 2 times that week. The most incredible situation that was done for us was to meet a photographer on the beach at a sunset for a photo shoot. How beautiful this evening was, and to show for it, AARP published a hardcover book, which I brought for all of you to see. We returned home and were hit with COVID. The beginning of August, after bringing Len to Boston for a checkup with a cardiologist, he was put in the Newton Wellesley Hospital due to COVID again and pneumonia. From this day forward, it was a nightmare no one should ever have to experience. The man I loved more than anyone in the world was on oxygen for these past 3 months due to a horrible cough, and his lung collapsed. He continued to have dialysis 3 times a week by his bed, and sadly, the leukemia took him from me. Never in my life have I ever or will ever know of anyone who never complained, always told every medical provider, just do what you have to do so I can live. Asked approximately 10 medical people a day, how are you? With a smile, and fought with all his might. From that hospital to Hartford Hospital, and then for the next 6 weeks. I either slept in his hospital bed or recliner, as I only wanted and needed to comfort him. Awful, can't even describe Len's time away from our home. Saturday, the doctor came in and held his hand saying, "Lenny, the fight you have put up has been unbelievable. If there isn't another avenue to go down, and we've done our very best to get you better and home, what would you like?" In his soft voice, he said, and not for himself, "Please have everyone take care of my little girl, for she has worked tirelessly to return good health to me." Lastly, our love song by Barbra Streisand will always resonate with me. I finally found someone. Going forward will be the toughest mountain I ever climbed. Honey, I will love you forever and ever. And then I had written something prior to that I would like to share. And this is when I first met Lenny. Wow, we finally made it. How can I ever forget our first date? February 3rd, 1973. You called from New Haven asking me to pick a nice place where we could have dinner. The Shine Inn with their singing waiters and waitresses from the Hartford Conservatory of Music was where it all began. I found my knight in shining armor. Honey, you were so sweet, warm, and believe it or not, talkative. While eating the scrumptious meal, you asked me to dance. In your arms, holding me close, I thought I would melt. What a beautiful evening that was, and praying I would see you again. I knew you must have felt the same way as you called me on Monday to make that hour-long drive again, to visit me on Wednesday. Jumping for joy, I was ecstatic. I needed to tell my sons what a friend I met was coming for dinner. I told them, now you must be really nice and use good manners. Andy had just turned 10 and Robbie 6. The evening went rather smoothly. I recall just 11 days later, you asked me to marry you. Isn't that unbelievable? Stunned and in disbelief, I said yes. Being this happy was something I never fathomed. The excitement and elation which consumed me, I turned to Len and said, I must call my mother. Okay, you commented. It was 7 o'clock at night. Remember my telling Mother to sit down, for she was going to be so excited about the news I was about to share with her. When I blurted out, I'm getting married, I asked you if you wanted to say hello. You took the phone, said hello. My mother said nothing. 7 a.m. in the next morning, she called, yelling at me, "Are you crazy? Are you in your right mind?" When I had been in Florida prior to going out with you, Mother had asked me if I had been dating. I told her that I hadn't, and all I wanted to do was concentrate on raising the boys the best way I knew how. Remember, I told my mother, but you told me that men were not a part of your plan. Mother calmed down when I went to explain that March 7th, I was arranging for the boys to be taken care of for 4 days, and we were going to spend time with them so they could put the okay on our up-and-coming marriage, which would be June 10th of 1973. Inconceivable, but approving and falling in love With you also, honey, my mother put together an engagement party in 2 days in her small condo for 50 family members and friends. The rest was history. I said to you, can you believe it? We are going to be married again, but this time with many people we loved. Watch a montage Robbie put together so beautifully, listened to great music while having a first dance, and saying our vows with Rabbi Walk, plus having a wedding cake. You commented, it's about time. How many men would have married me with 2 young sons and astonishingly fight for me, Andy and Robbie, with so much love, while never complaining, but struggling with such an immense traumatic situation. No one, but it was you who never let your guard down with your ready smile to do whatever it took to get through the unimaginable. A few weeks ago, I heard the incredible Tom Hanks on the radio talking about the many movies he produced and directed. He referred to one of his best, Forrest Gump. In this well-loved motion picture, Forrest said, "Life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get." Honey, I think you will agree. As our incredible son, Robbie, wrote on the invitation email to everyone, it's been quite a journey. We've managed to plod through the thick quicksand quite often while coming up on the other side. I will continue to walk by your side while dealing with this current hurdle. My love for you has never wavered, and I only hope and pray after 50 years into this love affair that one day I will be able to join you. Health is wealth, and what I wish for you as you rest in peace is to go on as best you can, and I will do the same, traveling down this road. I will love you forever, your little girl.
Len was born in New Haven on March 10th, 1941. He was the son of Mina and Abraham Cohen, and he had one brother, Edward. Len had a happy childhood. He loved sports and was always picking up games in the neighborhood. I realized that's something children today may not understand, that expression, picking up games in the neighborhood. But whether it was soccer or football or street games, Len was athletic. He was even invited to play on the Maccabi soccer team. Len's parents came from big families. His mom was one of 5 and his dad was one of 7. And Carol reminded me or told me that in Len's childhood, there were weekly gatherings of the cousins. The men played cards and the women talked and the children played. The consistency of it all, of these weekly family gatherings, grounded Len in a certain kind of way. He knew who he was and he knew what mattered. Len went to Hillhouse High School in New Haven. He was bar mitzvahed at B'nai Jacob in Woodbridge. He went to UConn and eventually transferred to Quinnipiac College, where he got a BA in science and accounting. As I said, Len had a wonderful childhood where he was loved by his siblings, by his brother, by his parents, by aunts, uncles, and cousins. He felt good about life. Len was in the service between 1966 and 1971, and when he came back, he and Carol were fixed up by a mutual friend, Judy Baskin. The story is that Len called, and Carol was going to be out of town. And Len called back, and as you heard from Carol, they had a quick romance. But they seemed to have known what they were doing. Len was full of life. He always had a big smile on his face. He loved children of all ages, and that might be one of the many reasons he fell in love with Carol. Not just because he loved Carol, but when he met Andy and Rob, he loved them too, because he was the kind of person who loved children. And these two boys, I remember once he said to me, they were just something. But the something was with this big smile. And he said, I would have picked them out of anywhere and been with them. Len and Carol were married in June '73. Cantor Shames and Rabbi Ofsar co-officiated. The wedding was here in the chapel at Temple Bethel. And what Len brought to Carol, to Rob, and to Andy was love and warmth and affection. I like to say that Len grounded Carol. As many of you know, Carol could be sometimes a little all over the place, and sometimes she gets excited. But Len grounds her. Len was calm. Len was unflappable. He was never easily alarmed, and he had this tremendous sense of grounding and perseverance and tenacity. After Len and Carol got married, they became active members of Bethel. Len was active in the Brotherhood, and the two could be seen at Temple Bethel regularly on Friday night or Shabbat morning, of course with their sons in tow. Rob and Andy were remembering some of the fun things the family did together: trips to Sun Valley Beach Club in Semers, Connecticut, go-karts in Vernon, Connecticut, and trips to the most incredible roller coaster in Hershey Park. As they described the roller coaster, my stomach was churning thinking about it. But they remembered it as just one great big adventure. As we've said already several times, Len was very athletic, and the family talked not just about how Len would play ball with the kids and be outside with the kids from noon to night, but also about how he and Carol were active together. Len and Carol participated in drag boat racing, where they recreated period boats. They did this 3 years in a row. And speaking of athletic, after Carol recovered from breast cancer, Len and Carol walked 60 miles over 3 days to raise money for cancer research. They were amongst the oldest walkers, but they did it. Although the truth be told, I think Matthew Potter gets some credit for that walk, because as I'm told, they walked during the day and slept at Matthew's each night, where they were enveloped with love and a good bed and probably some good nourishment. Rob married Melissa, and there were Sasha and Alana, and Andy married Wendy, and there's Zachary and Olivia. And so there was this family, and together Len and Carol were attentive and devoted grandparents to Sasha, Alana, Zachary, and Olivia. I would be remiss if I didn't say that life has been hard these last few years. Carol spoke some of it, Rob spoke some of it. There was a lot of struggle. What I want us to think about the most is how Len persevered, and that another person with less determination and less perseverance would simply not have lived as long. But it isn't just that Len lived as long as he did. He did it with grace. I can't tell you how many times I would visit with Len and Carol was concerned or upset about something, and Len just smiled and said, leave it, let it go. When I officiated a funeral, I often ask myself, what is the wisdom and what is the Torah that I can learn from the person who died? And from Len, I learn 3 things. The first is that I saw how Len was with children, and I hear how he was with Rob and Andy when they were little, and it was simply remarkable in the way in which he loved them and the way he poured his love on them. And to hear Matthew talk about how when his own family had a crisis, he felt Len and Carol's love, that's a lesson for life. The second piece that I think about is that I don't think Len knew how to spell the word complain. He simply never did. No matter what curveball life threw at Len, he looked to the future, and he didn't complain. He simply asked himself, what am I going to do about it? And he did it to the best of his ability. And the last thing that I learned from Len was just the smile on his face. Reminds me that without saying a word, without doing a thing, simply by sitting in the pew, if you have a smile on your face, you can actually inspire and affect the people around you. And so when I think about Len, I learn those lessons, and I think, this is not a man who had an easy life. In fact, to say it another way, Len had a hard life, but he lived his life with chen, with grace, with a tremendous sense of satisfaction and direction. And in this way, he modeled for all of us how to carry oneself when life gets difficult and in those challenging moments. And I will hold Len in my heart for those lessons. And I imagine as I look around here that all of you know exactly what I'm talking about and that you'll hold him in that same way. Zecher Tzadik Levracha, may this really good man be remembered for a blessing, and may the good deeds that he did in this world continue to reverberate as our journey continues. If you're able, I'm going to invite you to please rise as Cantor Barbara is going to chant for us the El Malei Rachamim.
El Malei Rachamim, Shochen Bamromim, Hametzeh Menucha Nechona, Tachat Kanfei Hashchina, B'malot Kadoshim Utorim, Kezar Arakim Asirim, Ad Nishmot Eliezer ben Avraham, She'alach le'olamo, Began Eden Temenuchato, Hanabal Harachamim Hastirehu, Besetar Knafecha Le'olamim, Utzror Bitzror Chaim, Et Nishmoto Adonai Unachalato, Ve'anuach V'shalom Al Mishkavo, Ve'namar Amen.
El Malei Rachamim, exalted, compassionate God, grant infinite rest in your sheltering presence among the holy and pure, to the precious soul of Leonard Cohen, the son of Mina and Abraham. Len has gone to his eternal home, and we pray, dear God, we ask that Len find perfect peace in your eternal embrace. We pray that Len's soul be bound up in the bond of life, and that he is able to rest in peace. And let us say, Amen.
Amen.